Hi, my name is Blair Glenn. I'm an ISA certified arborist. Just the other day, I was asked by a client to come out and look at his trees, and he posed a question to me that I've heard so many times. Why can't I top my trees? His concern was that his trees were too tall. My mind flashed back immediately to a situation where there was a tree. It was a blue Atlas cedar that I've been taking care of for over 25 years. Absolutely beautiful tree. Every year I told the client, it's fine, leave it alone, it's okay. Maybe a little bit of deadwood, maybe a little bit of crossover limbs, but it was perfect. Unfortunately, the old gentleman passed away. The house was sold. I drove by and this is what I saw. The tree had been cut in half. It broke my heart. This tree that was in such perfect shape, didn't require anything, apparently was too tall to the new homeowners. Around the corner from the same property was another set of 3 beautiful trees. There were pin oaks. These trees were gorgeous. They didn't need a thing. They were tall, they had a perfect shape to them, didn't require much maintenance at all. Apparently the same company got a hold of these as well because they're not as tall as they used to be. Everywhere I drive, I see evidence of improper tree trimming and butchery. I'm incensed by it, and I don't understand why people don't get it. So what is wrong with topping a tree? Why is it so hard on the tree, and why are so many professionals irritated by this practice when it's done so frequently? This is a difficult subject to briefly discuss, but here's a prime example of a central leader tree that was apparently too tall. Someone came along and lopped it off and cut it in half. That continuing leader that would have brought this tree up to a grand stature and a very nice balanced shape has been permanently altered. Now, sadly, there are reasons why some trees have to be harshly pruned, and obviously the electric company needs to keep their wires clear. But for the average tree, we should respect the integrity of the structure that the tree is trying to achieve. We have limited growing space with all the hardscaping, roads, houses, structures, wires, and everything that we have to deal with, that we have to choose the appropriate tree for the appropriate location. Topping trees just causes long-term decay, long-term problems, increases the maintenance requirements, and oftentimes kills the tree. Even in fast-growing species that are tolerant of abuse, such as this eucalyptus tree, what you end up creating is a massive bush of suckers that requires more frequent pruning. So your single motion of cutting a tree harshly creates a permanent long-term maintenance issue and is much more expensive. Now, this is ever so common a sight. People just don't want a big tree, so they come along and they just whack it back. Some people do this every single year. And certainly many species of trees will survive and tolerate this abuse. But what happens when you do this sort of treatment to a tree? The new growth that comes out comes in long, small sprouts, and you create a structural imbalance that unless you continually go in there and cut it back harshly, you will end up with a tree that self-destructs, falls apart, has an increased crop or seed production. Long-term problems, I can go on and on and on, but just don't do it. And from the perspective of trying to maintain these trees that have had harsh treatment done to them in the past, all I end up doing is trying to reconstruct the tree and repair mistakes. And repairs are not easy to do. When you have decay pockets, basically, I end up keeping the tree as safe as possible and cutting them back and watching the tree go downhill. It becomes a long-term decline in health. Now, I'm showing this image of a birch tree because this is a type of tree that when they get topped, the wood decays rapidly. in 3 to 4 years after topping a birch tree, you can have a tree that hollows out and rots all the way down. So when you top a tree that is a very sensitive tree, not only do you destroy the integrity of the structure, you shorten the life of the tree, you create a hazardous tree for the next climber or possibly for falling on your house. But it's just not necessary. This is a tall wispy tree that should be allowed to be a tall wispy tree. It shouldn't have anything done to it other than minor deadwood, maybe a few crossovers. A birch tree is a great tree to have in terms of low maintenance. I'm going to wrap this up by saying that tree trimmers and people who have worked on trees in the past are probably the #1 problem associated with bad structure and trees that are declining. Trees that are left alone in the woods, for the most part, do just fine. So certainly there's hazards, and certainly there are associations with buildings and cleanliness and things that will improve the overall health and structure and aesthetics of trees. But trying to manage a height situation or trying to control a tree by drastic pruning is not the answer. So choose the right tree. If you want a small tree, choose a small tree. If you have a large tree, enjoy it. Learn to appreciate it for what it is. Thanks for taking the time to view this brief presentation. I hope you've learned a little bit about why you don't top trees. This is Blair Glenn. I'm an ISA certified arborist.